Hi guys, how's it going? Danny Fitzy here, and today I'm going to be giving you a little build overview of the most recent build I've been playing in the Delirium League, PoE 3.10. I don't know why I added all those extra details, just so you know. And that is Fire Blade Vortex. Now I did a Blade Vortex build last league. It was mostly more about like the cold Herald of Ice explosion pops. So this time I thought, you know what, if I'm going to play this skill again, let's play a little bit differently, and let's go Fire. And it's worked out pretty well. There's a few little gimmicks or like combinations of items that's making this work and probably making it stronger in some aspects. But a lot of it's down to pretty much the same mechanics as last time. So if you've watched that video, there's probably only one thing that you will notice is the dual synthesis ring setup is what's really making it that much better, and that's why you have to go Fire. And there's a reason for that, and I'll explain it when I go through all the gear and the and the gems. But obviously I'm just going to quickly run through some nodes on Delve just to give you a live example of the build in action. I'd rather just run through Delve. This is quite a long node. It'll give you enough of an overview of how the build functions rather than just playing some random bits of stream. And I haven't really been playing the build too much recently because I leveled a new character. But yeah, we're utilising power charge stacking with Badge of the Brotherhood, which gives us an immense amount of frenzy charges, in combination with our chest, which gives us frenzy on hit. And as you can see, after a few seconds, we're maxed on our charges, and we're an assassin at the end of the day, you know. So we're just smashing kids. You'll notice the explosion pops aren't as mega as the ice one, and that's because of a few reasons. Oh, might as well go in here. I mean, the exploded chest is still doing just as much work as it normally would, and that's quite nice. Look at that, a little 30-40C right there. But the Herald of Ash is obviously not instant damage, it's overkill burn damage, so you don't get the instant pops as you would with Herald of Ice. But what it means is in the end game, you will actually be doing more damage with your Herald because the overkill damage obviously is 25% overkill. So if you're hitting for millions, you're then doing 25% of millions of damage as overkill, which is a lot more than your base damage of a Herald of Ice, for example. Have a little wall here, why not? Doesn't look like there's anything in here. But yeah, it's just a real smooth gameplay. As you know, how Blade Vortex has always been pretty juicy. You can play it multiple ways, and even with the new Blade Blast skill, you could probably utilize that somehow, maybe in the build. But I haven't really played around with that yet. I'm obviously using the Val aspect as well, basically just your burst damage or a little bit of extra clear. I'm also using Orb Storms to proc my curse. My curse is Ellie weakness. You don't really need Assassin's Mark in this build. You have plenty of frenzies, power charges, so that aspect of the curse is lost on us. It does give us a good amount of damage still because of the extra damage they take from the crits when they're marked, but Ellie weakness is just far better, and against the enemies that it really matters the way you need the extra damage, Ellie weakness is by far stronger. I would say probably twice as strong, and because we're using it in a curse on hit setup, we can have a higher leveled version of it as well, which is really nice. And we'll go to this fossil node as well, why not, just to give you some more action. I drop it every now and then as well, since we have quite high cast speed and action speed, and that it doesn't it's about the same time as casting your blades back up, so you can just weave them in and out. You can just see like the elites and stuff, they just get wrecked, right? I mean, as soon as you hit them, they're probably just going to blow up, and you're just going to do big damage. This does a lot more single target than the other build did, and there's a few reasons why. The main reason is obviously the synthesis rings, but yeah, we'll get into the actual build now. Let me just clear my inventory because that's going to trigger me otherwise. These are rubbish. We'll just dash everything like that. Look at that click accuracy, dude. Look at that. Bang. I'll sell that after I don't use them. Right. So let's get into it. So I'll obviously cover the pieces of gear. Then I'll go over the gem links. Then I'll go over the passive tree and ascendancy, obviously with that, and then I'll do the flasks whenever I feel it's relevant to talk about the flasks. I mean, you can see there what they are. Let's just do them first. you got your standard life flask. I always go bleed immune flask. I'm trying to get instant recovery or some sort of faster recovery. I have, you know, I'm not too bothered as long as I got bleed immunity on it. I'm good. Diamond flask is always strong for any crit build. Move speed flask, and this is like a super move speed flask, just so we can zoom. Cinder swallow, because we are Eldritch battery, so the and even the life and energy shield you gain on kill while you're mapping just pretty much negates any sort of you have to get one shot to die basically while you're mapping, because you'll just instantly pop your life and energy shield back up when you kill a pack of mobs. I've got the reduced mana cost on there. It's pretty irrelevant for this build, but it was just cheap at the time. Obviously you'd want the crit roll for more optimization. And then we're going to Zeri's Promise, because the Fizz and the Elemental as all extra is huge for us, and a bit of Chaos Res is always nice, just to make us a little bit more durable, and a little bit of extra leech. Can't go wrong with a Zeri's Promise. Another option would be a Taste of Hate to add some cold damage to the build, and that way you can actually shatter mobs and freeze. Because anything as Fizz is extra in this build is extremely strong, since the base damage of Val, or just Blade Vortex in general, is a lot of Fizz. So Fizz is extra is huge multipliers for us. So let's get into the items. We are dual wielding Void batteries. They are so strong, and when you pair them with a Badge of the Brotherhood and the Assassin Ascendancy, or any Ascendancy that can stack the power charges on the tree, it just becomes insane how much extra damage. It's basically a 7th link to anything. Plus, and that's just, I'm just counting the more multiplier you get from frenzies. If you don't know, frenzy charges give you 4% more damage per frenzy, as well as 4% cast and attack speed, and a power charge will give you 40% crit. And we have 9 of both, so we're getting 36% more damage straight up just from the frenzy charge alone, plus all the crit and the attack speed and the cast speed. I mean, the attack speed doesn't matter, but the cast speed helps, get your blades up and makes you feel a bit more smoother. I don't think it affects the tick rate of the blades. I don't think that's affected by cast speed. I might be wrong, but however, we don't really need cast speed. I mean, that's when you're looking for these, you don't need to look for anything in particular. You just need 2 void batteries, and then you're good to go. Because the main things you want are the +1 and the 25% increased spell damage per power charge. You know it says 80% reduced spell damage on there. Well, you've already got 40% that's negating that as an implicit, and 1 power charge, or I mean, should I say 2 power charges, and you're already 10% over that. So then everything else is actually extra. So these are giving us up to like 200 to 250% spell damage per. And if you dual wield them, that's like 500 spell damage, which is massive multiplier. And obviously increased global crit. I mean, we're an assassin, so we have so much crit anyway. We're pretty much 100% most of the times, especially with a flask up. So yeah. And then obviously the Badge of the Brotherhood is the one that gives you all the frenzies, because it means your maximum power charges are also equal to your maximum. Your maximum frenzies is also equal to your maximum power. So if you have 9 power charges, you can get up to 9 frenzies. You need a way to generate that. It doesn't generate it for you, but we're doing that through our chest, which I'll get into in a minute. But that's just chance to gain a frenzy on hit. There are other ways you can do this. I was using Ice Bite in the other build, but obviously that was a cold build, so it synergized way more, because it gives you added cold per frenzy plus frenzy generation built into the gem, so it's quite nice for that. But yeah, Badge of the Brotherhood extremely strong just for that aspect alone, and then also the elusive effect on this. I mean, the cooldown recovery on travel skills is whatever. It's quite nice with dash, since it has such a low cooldown anyway. But I mean, the elusive effect is huge. It's given us a lot of dodge to attack and spell hits, and a lot of move speed. So, and you can also use Withering Step to reproc your elusive. I don't know if I have it in anymore. I think I took it out. That's why there's some empty slots here. But there is some things you can do with like Withering Step, because that procs elusive. And because we're an assassin, we get elusive on hit. We get elusive effect there. We got elusive effect here. Our elusive is huge defense and kind of quality of life, because it gives us massive move speed. So Badge of Brotherhood is just a very juicy amulet, which is why it's 5 to 7x at the time I bought mine. It could be more, it could be less now. And the void batteries are about 100 C each. They usually don't go up, they usually go down as the league goes on, because they're rare, but they're not like Badge of the Brotherhood rare or anything rarer than that. So You don't have to use these, but the build that I'm playing right now, my whole setup is built around like having frenzies as like the chest and stuff. Like obviously you're not using Badge of Brotherhood, you're not gonna have frenzies, so it's like you're not gonna have that maximum frenzy cap all the way up to 9. So it's like, what's the point of optimizing around frenzies that you're not gonna be generating? So yeah, I would say they're pivotal to the build, but even more pivotal to that, and this is what really gives the build so much like base damage for like barely anything, is these synthesis rings. And I'm wearing 2 of them, and you'll notice they both have pretty much 100% buff effect on Herald of Ash, and we're using 2 of these because they do stack, and they are technically considered double dipping, because Herald of Ash, if we read what this gem does, obviously we know about the overkill damage. That's the explosion you see when you kill a mob. It does 25% of that overkill damage as burning damage to the mobs around it. So obviously if you hit for 1 million, you can do 250k of burning damage to anything that gets hit by that, and then they can proc Ash off that. I think it does chain react, and it just cleans up, right? But gain 15% of physical damage as extra fire damage, and like I said before, physical damage is really strong. Physical as extra is really strong in this build because all our base damage is fizz, and there's a lot of it. It's given us 15%, right? You increase that by 100%, that's 30. You get another 100%. It doesn't stack multiplicative like that, it is additive, so then it's 45%. But that's still 40. That's an awakened added fire support, which I have in my main link at the moment, built into Herald of Ash right there. So it's 45% physical as extra damage, and then the burning damage is pretty much irrelevant here. But the more fire spell fire damage, I can't read, 12%. That's now 36. But that also is on top of all the extra fire damage you've got. So you're gaining all that extra damage, physical as extra fire damage, and then it's getting multiplied by the more spell fire damage. So it's like an absolute win-win situation there, which is why you stack both of these. Try and get as close to 100% increased. I need to slow down. Try and get close to 100% increased buff effect on both of the rings. The other rolls are however much you can spend. Obviously the mana renovation ones. I mean the one I've got here, this fire resist one, is probably the cheapest version you can get. Obviously the implicits do jack up the price. I mean this multi one was actually quite cheap, and this one has increased global fizz on it, a bit of int, and damage with ailments, which is all useful to us. Try and get something that's maybe useful, but I mean the rings alone for the buff effect are worth it, and they give you some added fire and strength and some fire resist. So with these 2 rings, I usually just get one. You can get 2 with buff effect and increased fire damage. That would be the biggest damage output setup, but they're the most expensive ones with that combination. So for me, it was just about more like balance. So I wanted huge fire res, so I didn't have to worry about fire res anywhere else in my gear, and reduced mana reservation, because I was thinking about juicing up the Herald of Ash with links, but it turns out there's not much you can link with it. The only thing I have linked with it is increased area of effect, so it hits more things when it blows up. So those are the 2. I'd say the combination between the Void Battery and the Badge of the Brotherhood, and then the 2 synthesis rings, are just insane, and that's basically what makes the build. The rest of it is just gravy. You can use these on any build that has a lot of fizz damage. So any melee skill, any other fizz spell that has a massive amount of fizz damage, you can use this combination of the 2 rings with it and Herald of Ash and just turn it into a fire blasting beast. I was going to do it with a melee skill, but I don't know which one yet. I was thinking about Wild Strike, but I'm building a Wild Strike cold damage build at the moment, so yeah, I don't want to keep doing fire builds the same, so whatever. Keep that in mind though. Then we're using the Eldritch Battery Helmet, purely because of the mana reservation on the skills. I've got 2 50% in there with an Enlighten, so we've got Anger and Zealotry. Zealotry is just some more spell damage and extra crit, and Anger is just some added fire damage to spells. But the reason we're using Anger over anything else is the fact that it has a Watcher's Eye that gives us fizz to fire conversion, and you're going to need a little bit of that just to make all your LE damage and stuff scale a bit better. We got one here, it was like 100C, it's only 38% as well. You can get up to 40. And then I have some on my gloves, 25%, and that's more than enough. I did try going up here and taking this, and then just having the watch's eye and swapping the gloves out. But although my path building said it was more damage overall, it just didn't feel as good when I was mapping for some reason. And it might have just been me over analyzing it, and maybe if I just put it on and just mapped without thinking about it too much. But to me, it felt worse. I think it's because you can get fizzes extra anywhere, right? I mean, at the moment, sat in town, we literally only do physical fire damage, so in theory it shouldn't do anything. But if you have any sort of fizzes extra, and obviously this thing doesn't work, Azur's Promise is completely gutted, because only the elemental part works, so the physical is extra chaos damage doesn't work. And rolls like that are so powerful, you're just completely cutting yourself out of those rolls, because you can get them on amulets. If you're not going to use Badge of Brotherhood, you could get fizzes extra on amulet. You get a double roll on there if you're going big dick. There's a lot of flasks, like I said, Taste of Hate, this flask. You can get it on rings, although I would recommend using these rings. These rings basically make the build. And you could also convert some more of it to something else, right? You could convert 25% of it to cold, so you could shatter and freeze enemies. You could do lightning, so you can shock, you know? I feel like for the easy conversion, it's just not worth it. If it, was just 50% fizz conversion of all of that to fire, and it wasn't, and you deal no non-fire damage, so if you're not fully converted, you're losing all that fizz damage as well. Remember that. So that's probably why it felt a little bit worse for me, because I didn't have full conversion at the time. Actually, yes, I did. I'm lying, because I still had these gloves. So I did have full conversion, but that's something to note as well. You would lose all that fizz damage. If you only had 40%, you'd be losing 60% of your fizz damage. Well, 90%, because obviously the keystone gives you 50%. So, but you can test maybe with your current setup or your builds or your items, it might work better. But for me, it was not. So yeah, the chest. I made this myself with an Awakener's Orb. I ult spammed for Explodey mod. It took about 1500 ults, which is, I believe, pretty good. I saved money by doing it myself. And then I bought a Redeemer Val Regalia. I level 85 as well. And then got the chance to gain a Frenzy on hit, which is not that rare at all. Very easy to get. And then I slammed them together with an Awakener's Orb. And I got this. So the two mods I care about, obviously, the Frenzy Charge and the Explodey mod. Exploding mod's purely just for clear, it's not needed at all. It's more like a luxury item, or luxury mod, because it's like 5x. The mod alone is about 5x, because that's how rare it is to roll it on something, and then to get it on like a usable chest is even more. So yeah, the main thing you want though is that game Frenzy on hit. If you're doing the Badge of the Brotherhood and the Void Batteries, that mod is so good. You don't need to worry about Frenzy generation anywhere in your build. It's built into your chest. 10% is actually incredible. Go back and watch the footage and you can check how quickly my frenzies come up. I was actually surprised. I thought it might not be that good, but it's actually insanely strong. And it's something I'm considering on a lot of builds now whenever I have the option to stack a bit more frenzies. I think even the build I'm currently working on with the Wild Strike one, I'm probably going to make a similar chest just on a different base, obviously, because I'm going to need different links. So I can't just use this chest. It'll be a pain in the ass to link up. With like a bunch of reds, but yeah, and I got a decent one. It's got a little bit of lightning res on it, which helps, and then a free prefix, so I can get 10% of maximum life as extra energy shield. This chest alone gives me about 1000 ES, and it's not even got ES like anywhere in the prefixes or suffixes. It's a basic Val Regalia basically, so that mod alone that you can craft on is insane. And because we're Eldritch Battery, we're aiming for at least 2000 energy shield. I've not hit it just yet, but I'm using Mind Over Matter in combination with that. So what that means is just I'm basically a little bit tankier. So 4k life looks pretty crappy and looks pretty a mega low softcore, but 30% extra EHP. It's not actually that bad. Plus Cinder Swallow when you're mapping, and you gain all that juice back when you kill stuff. It's actually pretty tanky. You just find yourself getting one shot. That's PoE in a nutshell anyway, but if you're ever going to die, it's most likely because you're going to get one biff by a delirium, fucking big AoE mega mob, or like a boss or something like that. But for the most part, it's a very smooth mapping experience. My gloves, like I said before, just got some conversion on there, and then I was just filling out my resists and life and getting some dex requirements since this is 155 dex to use. You probably will need dex somewhere on your gear, so I did that on gloves. I'm using a crystal belt just to help fill out that ES. Once I start min-maxing some more and I have over 2000 ES, I can start dropping that and put like Stygian Vise in there and maybe go for more of an elemental Stygian Vise. Or fire damage, elemental damage. Just increased damage that you can put on, but as you can see here, I've had to craft on some decks. So as you can see, the build is by far from min-max, and it can run through T16's in its current state pretty smoothly. With a bit of more min-maxing, you'll be seriously just flying through all the content in the game. Boots again, just looking for some move speed, life, and resist. Most enchants are pretty good for this build. I would say the most OP one will probably be the damage pen one for killing tankier targets, especially bosses. And then after that, I'd probably say like the move speed or the damage leech or the extra fire damage if you've killed recently is probably your next best bet. But these are just, they use the T2 damage leech ones, but they roll okay, and I haven't been asked to change them. I probably should get some ES boots, and that's my next upgrade. Maybe get some tailwind. Tailwind would be extremely strong for this build. Any build really. 10% more action speed is always very nice. And that is it for the pieces of gear. Nothing too special going on. It's just the combination of the uniques in the build really. Other than the helmet, you don't need to do this with the helmet. You could drop Zealotry and use Anger on its own, and you know, maybe slot something else in. Maybe some more defense. I think it's Flesh and Stone that gives you like 10% less damage taken from projectiles and stuff, something like that instead, because you save yourself a lot of mana, so you could use anything else. You could even go Hatred because its fizz is extra, and yeah, Watcher's Eye with like base crit on it or something. Who knows? But yeah, that's what I'm rocking right now, and it's working pretty well. I obviously will have, there are a lot of potential upgrades here. And also with the tree, which I'm going to get into right now. But obviously we're an Assassin. I took Mistwalker first, and then I took all the way up to Deadly Infusion next. And this gives you like base crit, it gives you an extra power charge as well. Gives you unlimited power charge generation. Once again, the base crit is so strong, that's why Assassin's so good. And if you don't know, the Exploding mod scales off this kind of stuff. That's why Herald of Ice is so strong as well at cleaving stuff when you play an Assassin. It's because it has no inherent base crit. So when you start socketing it with, you know, like a crit gem, and like sockets have X amount of base crit, like this does here, it gives you +2. That is adding on to those stuff that doesn't have crit. So this Exploding mod is now critting and exploding and chain reacting itself everywhere. And it's a fizz based skill, so all our fizz is extra is popping off as well. So this hits pretty hard. You'll notice if you have a red beast surrounded by mobs and you just run in there and it just explodes, you'll notice how you'll absolutely chunk the red beast. Sometimes even one-shot on it. I've had scenarios in like T14s where I've one-shot red beasts just because of the situation, you know. And it helps as well with this Assassin node as well. You know, we've got more crits on full life, so if the enemy hasn't been hit yet and they get hit by an explosion, at least with our main skill, we're guaranteed to crit. I don't know what it is with the explosion because obviously it has no base crit. I mean, Blade Vortex has base crit of 6, so plus all our crit multipliers, that is almost pretty much 100%. But you know, you're just gonna wreck face. I mean, like I said, the Exploding mod's not necessary at all. You'll probably be able to run through mobs just as well, but it just cleans up so well, and it's just so strong with Assassin as well. But yeah, you can take either or of these two. If you feel like you need a little bit more single target and you want like a little bit more defense, you can take this node. It's also going to give you a little bit extra move speed as well, which is quite nice, but I just prefer this for map and I feel it's smoother. Cullen Strike is a 10% more multiplier anyway, so you're not losing out too much from this in terms of single target, and you just get that guaranteed crit when you just run into mobs, which then obviously procs everything, and then you just, you know, you clean the screen up, so it feels good. And these two got buffed as well by like 5% more this patch, so it's even stronger than it was last league. And then my tree is a little bit scuffed, but This is what I'm rocking right now. It's pretty standard for Blade Vortex. You want to work your way down to the skill duration. This alone is just enough to make it feel comfortable, so you don't have to keep casting your blades literally every second. In combination with Unleash, which I'll talk about my gems in a second, because I forgot about that. Then we're taking our Cyan Life Wheel since we're so close to it and it's so efficient for life. We obviously got Mind Over Matter. We're taking the generic Templar bits and pieces for LE damage and area damage. Then we've grabbed each of the max power charges, but I've anointed one because taking them all is a little bit inefficient. This bit down here is probably the worst part of my tree. You could probably gut these nodes here and anoint this one since it's the cheapest power charge to anoint, and then just grab this one over here with the same amount of points. I think you even save a point if you did that right now with my current tree, so that's something to note. Obviously just picking up all the crit and any energy shield and life if you can. Area damage and area of effect, it's all nice. And then we've actually grabbed the power charge kind of half wheel here, just basically for these two end ones, the multi and the damage. You're getting 45% increased damage at max power charges, and you're getting 45% multi at max power charges. And obviously multi is scaling huge with us since we crit all the time. Multi's huge. And then I've got a little jewel here, a little life, crit, damage if you've killed recently. Quite a nice little bitch jewel I ran into. You can use a what's it called? What's that? Summit learning, not inspired learning. I can't remember the name. Unnatural instinct. In here, and you can grab this for some endurance charge generation, and obviously you'll grab these 3 little nodes for the life. You'll be able to grab the big one, but then you'll save 4 points, which you can use elsewhere, I guess. There's a lot more stuff on the tree that's worth taking. This fire damage wheel here is worth taking if you can be more efficient with your points or level up higher than I am. I'm currently 91, I think. So, and obviously down here we're taking the assassination because that is just insanely OP. You could work your way down here maybe and grab like phase actor and stuff, and then you can grab this multi here, but that's entirely up to you. I've gone this side over to the Templar side since I've taken Mind Over Matter. You don't have to play Mind Over Matter if you just stack more life. You could get away with not doing that. But the current gem situation, we're using Vile Blade Vortex, since the Vile Blade Vortex is very useful for zerging down bosses. Basically doubles your damage for a little bit. And obviously if you can get a 21 gem, get a 21 gem. Base damage increase on spells is huge. It's like a 10% more multiplier, a 10% more damage-ish, give or take, depends what gem it is. I've just got a 20 gem here, 2020. Decent, does the job. I mean, I'm in max, get 21, but it cost a lot, so just bear that in mind. Then I'm using Awaken added fire damage support because it was about 20 C, and it's the same amount as a maxed added fire, plus the fact if you quality it, you get 20 increased fire damage, and that's a global increase, so that's like a roll on your ring or something. So, and that gives us a lot of damage, like I said before, with the Fizz's extra. Then we're using power charge on crit, it's a more multiplier per power charge. We're stacking 9, we're getting 4%. We're getting 36% more damage. That's probably, you know, just subpar of some of the higher ones, but it's better than even things like Ice Bite, which you think might be alright. I tested Ice Bite since we have so many frenzies. I was like, the added damage might be way better, but it wasn't. Power charge was better. Control Destruction, the reduced crit is irrelevant. We have too much crit anyway. More multiplier, more spell damage. Juiciest gem in the game for spell damages, literally, especially on Assassin. Then we're using increased area of effect. This is a 2020, so we get a bit of area damage as well. I'd probably recommend using Intensify, I think it's called. You get the same amount of area effect when you're running around, but when you stand still and start spamming your Blade Vortex, it'll condense and do more damage. So it's basically like having a conk effect and an increased area effect in one gem that you can actually like play around, and you know, so you'd have to gem swap. I've just been super lazy, and I've been doing enough damage anyway, so I've not really got to that point where I'm like, I need that extra, you know, 40% more area damage. This is fine. I mean, you can always swap conk effect if you don't even want to use Intensify and you don't mind gem swapping really quick. And then Unleash is basically what makes Blade Vortex playable. It allows you to stack up to 3 extra casts. So when you cast once it's fully recharged, you get 4 stacks of the blades. And as you can see, look how quick it comes back up. And because when you're running around in the maps, every now and then you cast, and then you cast, and you get to a point where you're actually like kind of overcasting, if that makes sense, because you're casting about 3 when you're already at 10, so you're actually refreshing 3 stacks, so it takes longer to fall off, and it just is a huge quality of life gem. Obviously it doesn't give you really any damage. If anything, it gives you less damage. I don't know how the less damage reoccurring line really applies to Blade Vortex, because it's more of a stacking buff. I don't know if the whole thing in general does 10% less or per blade. I don't know, someone in the comments maybe know the interaction between that, but it's just a juicy gem. It's the quality of life Blade Vortex needed to be playable, basically. So that's my main link. There are obviously a few gems you could probably swap out. You can maybe go Fire Penetration rather than Fizz as extra. You know, maybe take it into Path of Building and just, you know, swap in gems and that and see how you feel. If you don't mind losing some damage for some more quality of life, maybe, you know, throw in an Ice Bite in there. Maybe it's a little bit less damage, but then you have the chance to shatter stuff. It's a bit of defense then because you're freezing stuff. Could be good. Then I'm using Curse on here, Ellie Weakness, Orb of Storms. Orb of Storms is really easy to put down. You could put Stormbrand in there if you wanted to. It will do the same thing. It's just a skill that you put down, and it tags everything with Ellie Weakness, which means they're taking a lot more damage. They're minus 44% Ellie Res. I think the highest in the game is minus 60, and that's Shaper and stuff, so you're pretty much removing Ellie Resist, but it can go into the minus Ellie Resist, so you can stack Ellie Resist and bring mobs down to minus, but minus 44 is a huge damage increase, like I said, over Assassin's Mark, way better. So yeah, easy, and this does actually quite a lot of damage once you're fully stacked, because of all the spell damage, all your charges is all global increases, frenzies, and your spell damage is all global, so you actually will notice sometimes you'll put it down and you just kill all the white mobs, all the white trash, and it'll just blow up. So yeah, that's something to consider as well. Then we've obviously got Zealotry, Anger, Enlighten in our helmet, so we've got a lot of reduced mana here, and that means we're able to fit this on, as well as Herald of Ash, which is linked with increased area effect, just so it hits more mobs. The whole idea with the Herald is obviously that it does a lot of extra damage to mobs, especially in higher tiers, and it just proliferates, I can't say it, across, you know, mobs. But it's not instant like Herald of Ice, which is something I kind of missed, to be fair, but still looks good with the new Stygian cosmetic, which is what you saw at the start. Then I've got Cast on Death Portal, a Megalol. With Delirium, it's just, I recommend this with any build. If you die, you know, you can get straight back into where you were. You don't have to worry about chasing the fog or being out of the fog when you go back through the portal and you're doing the Walk of Shame. So yeah, and then I'm using Dash, Second Wind, so we get 2 uses of Dash. OP as hell, and then obviously when our frenzies are up, this thing is off cooldown like constantly, so we can just dash around like a madman, and I just feel much more comfortable with that than Flame Dash. And in the other wand we have Steel Skin, increased duration, Wither and Step. I've not been using Wither and Step, it's not even on my bar, but just so you know, Wither and Step does re-proc your elusive up to max. And so what you can actually do is put this on a cast on damage setup. So when you take a hit and you've already had your elusive up and it's on like that internal cooldown it gets from the Mistwalker. If you don't know, this only procs on crit, but I believe it has a small internal cooldown of a few seconds. You're vulnerable when that's down. If you put this on or you self-cast it, it re-procs it up to 100%, even when it's already on. So if you proc your elusive via critting, and you press Wither and Step when it's about to drop off, you refresh the whole thing. So this can be extremely strong on a, you know, self-automated thing where if you get hit, then you proc elusive, then you become much more durable because you can dodge and you got move speed. And that's something to consider. I've just been too lazy to set it up. I will eventually, and this is probably completely over leveled. I'd probably want it to proc if I lost about 1,000 health, since, you know, it doesn't give too much elusive effect. This gem, it doesn't really matter if you have it at like level 10, so it'll do the job. but I've been lazy. I put it in increased duration with steel skin. The increased duration will only affect, I believe, does it even affect it? It does. It makes it last longer. 6.2. 4.3. That's just the withering. Never mind. That's the withered. Yeah, I was going to say the elusive lasts as long as elusive lasts. Elusive is a buff that has its own timer, so increased duration is only affecting steel skin here. I'm casting steel skin by myself. I'm a pro gamer. I don't need cast on damage taken. Mama didn't raise no bitch, so I press that when I know I'm about to get smacked up. Usually press it too late. Cry every time. And that's pretty much it. That is the build. It is poggers, and this is a 35-minute video. It's kind of too long, isn't it, really? And yeah, if you have any questions or I've missed something out or the POB scuffed, I basically I'm gonna snapshot what you're seeing here, this whole setup currently. I'll just snapshot and save down below in a POB, so you can go in there and edit it, or just if you want to dive deeper into the exact gear I'm using and sit there and read through it. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. If you have any comments or any questions, leave them down below and I'll try to answer. And if you're still here and you've watched the whole thing, you're a legend, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out. See you later.